Mia Johnson rolled her wheelchair up to the large glass doors of Caldwell Retail Corporation, her heart pounding with excitement and a little nervousness. Today was her first day as an intern at one of the biggest retail companies in the country. She had worked hard to get here, and she was determined to prove herself. Dressed in a professional blazer and slacks, she took a deep breath and pushed forward. The lobby was grand, with polished floors that reflected the bright lights above. Employees in suits and business dresses walked past her, some glancing at her with curiosity, others barely noticing her at all. She didn't mind. Mia wasn't here for attention. She was here to learn. As she reached the reception desk, the woman behind it looked up with a polite smile. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "I'm Mia Johnson, the new intern," Maya said, keeping her voice steady. The receptionist nodded and checked the computer. "Yes, you're assigned to the regional manager, Mr. Henshaw. Let me call someone to show you to your department." While she waited, Maya thought about her grandfather, Richard Caldwell. He was the CEO of this company, but almost no one here knew she was his granddaughter. She had asked him not to tell anyone. She wanted to succeed on her own, not because of family connections. He had agreed, though he had warned her that corporate life wasn't always fair. A few minutes later, a woman in her early 30s approached with a friendly smile. "Hi, you must be Mia. I'm Lisa. I work in HR. Welcome to Caldwell Retail." Maya returned the smile. "Thank you. I'm excited to be here." Lisa led her to the elevators, chatting along the way. Interns usually start by learning the basics, how we handle clients, reports, and operations. It's a great place to start, and if you need anything, just ask. Mia appreciated her kindness. The elevator dinged, and they stepped into a busy office space where employees typed on computers, answered phones, and shuffled papers. The atmosphere was full of energy. Lisa stopped in front of a corner office. "This is Mr. Henshaw's office, your supervisor." She knocked, then opened the door. Inside, a middle-aged man with sharp features and a tailored suit sat behind a desk, typing on his laptop. He barely glanced up before waving a hand. "Yes, Mr. Henshaw, this is Mia Johnson, your new intern," Lisa said. Daniel Henshaw finally looked at Mia, his eyes flicking to her wheelchair for a moment before he leaned back in his chair. His expression remained unreadable. "Ah, right. The intern." Mia greeted him politely. "It's nice to meet you, sir." He didn't return the greeting. Instead, he looked at Lisa. "You can go." Lisa hesitated for a second, then nodded. "All right, Mia, let me know if you need anything." As soon as Lisa left, Henshaw sighed and looked at Mia again. "So, you're the new intern. Look, I'm busy, so let's keep this simple. Your job is to observe, do what you're told, and stay out of the way. Got it?" Mia was taken aback by his tone. It wasn't welcoming at all. But she nodded. "Yes, sir. I'm here to learn." He smirked. "We'll see." Without another word, he handed her a stack of papers. "Start by organizing these reports. I need them in order by the end of the day. No mistakes." Mia took the papers without hesitation. She wasn't going to let his attitude discourage her. She had faced challenges before, and she knew that the best way to prove herself was through hard work. As she rolled to her desk, she could feel a few curious eyes on her. She ignored them and focused on the task at hand. This was only the beginning. Mia sat at her desk, carefully sorting through the reports Mr. Henshaw had given her. The stack of papers was thick, and the numbers and charts were complicated, but she didn't let that discourage her. She had always been good at analyzing information, and she actually found it interesting to see how the company handled its sales and customer service. As she worked, she noticed how busy the office was. Phones rang constantly, people rushed from one desk to another, and employees had serious expressions as they typed on their computers. It was clear that this was a fast-moving environment, and everyone had their role to play. From time to time, Mia caught people glancing at her. Some looked curious. others indifferent, and a few seemed unsure of how to act around her. She was used to it. People often didn't know how to respond when they saw someone in a wheelchair. Some assumed she needed help with everything, while others ignored her completely. She ignored the stares and focused on her work. She wanted to prove that she was just as capable as anyone else here. After about an hour, a woman with short blonde hair approached her desk. "Hey, you must be the new intern," she said with a friendly smile. Maya looked up and smiled back. "Yes, I'm Mia. I'm Rachel. I work in the marketing department. Welcome to the team." "Thanks, Rachel. It's nice to meet you." Rachel glanced at the papers Mia was organizing. "Wow, Henshaw really threw you right into the deep end, huh?" Mia chuckled. "It seems that way. But I like a challenge." Rachel seemed impressed. "That's a good attitude to have. If you need any help figuring things out, let me know." "I appreciate that," Maya said sincerely. As Rachel walked away, Maya felt a little better. At least not everyone in the office was as cold as Mr. Henshaw. Speaking of him, his office door suddenly swung open, and he stepped out, looking around. When he spotted Mia, he walked over with a frown. "Are those reports done yet?" he asked, arms crossed. Mia kept her voice calm and professional. "I'm almost finished. I just want to make sure everything is organized correctly." He scoffed. "It's not that complicated. Just make sure they're in order and drop them on my desk. I don't need perfection. I need speed." Mia bit her tongue. She wanted to explain that accuracy was just as important as speed, but she knew arguing wouldn't help. Instead, she nodded. "I'll bring them in a few minutes." Henshaw gave her one last look before turning and walking away. Maya let out a quiet sigh. She had dealt with difficult people before, but something about his attitude bothered her. He hadn't even given her a chance to show what she could do. A few minutes later, she rolled into his office and placed the completed reports on his desk. He barely glanced at them before waving a hand. "All right, go see if the front desk needs anything. We don't have time to waste." Mia nodded and left the office, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Henshaw had no intention of giving her real work. He seemed to think she was just here to do small tasks and stay out of the way. She knew she had to prove herself. As she made her way to the front desk, she overheard two employees talking near the coffee station. "Did you see the new intern? She's in a wheelchair," one of them whispered. "Yeah, I don't know how she's going to keep up here," the other replied. Mia pretended not to hear them, but their words stung. She had spent her whole life proving that her wheelchair didn't define her. She wasn't about to stop now. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her posture and rolled forward. She would let her work speak for itself. Mia sat quietly in the large conference room, her hands resting on the notebook in her lap. This was her first big meeting since she had joined the company, and she was eager to learn. Around her, employees were settling into their seats, flipping through documents, and preparing for the discussion ahead. At the front of the room, a large screen displayed a presentation about customer service performance. She glanced toward Mr. Henshaw, who was standing near the screen, talking to a few senior managers. He had barely spoken to her since their last conversation, except to give her small tasks. But this meeting was important, and Mia was determined to pay close attention. As the meeting started, a woman from the customer service department began presenting. She explained that while the company's sales were strong, they had received complaints from customers about long wait times and delayed responses. Mia listened carefully, taking notes. She had read about this issue in the reports she organized earlier. She had even noticed a pattern. Most complaints were from customers who used the company's online chat system rather than calling. The chat system had a delay, and that seemed to frustrate customers more than waiting on hold for a phone call. She hesitated for a moment, but then decided to speak up. Raising her hand slightly, she said, "Excuse me, I think I may have noticed something that could help." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to her. Some people looked surprised that she had spoken, while others seemed curious. Mr. Henshaw, however, looked annoyed. "Yes, Maya," he said, his voice flat. Maya took a breath and spoke clearly. "I went through the reports, and I noticed that most customer complaints come from the online chat system, not from phone calls. It looks like the chat responses are too slow, and that's making customers frustrated." There was a brief pause. One of the managers nodded thoughtfully. "That's actually a good point. I've seen a few complaints mentioning that." Another employee agreed. "Maybe we need to improve the chat response time. That could reduce negative feedback." Before anyone else could continue, Mr. Henshaw let out a short laugh. It wasn't a friendly laugh. It was dismissive. "Well, that's cute," he said, shaking his head. "But let's leave the real analysis to the professionals, all right? We don't need guesses from interns." A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Mia felt her face grow warm, but she kept her expression neutral. She wasn't expecting praise, but she also wasn't expecting to be mocked in front of the whole team. One of the senior managers cleared his throat. "Actually, Henshaw, she might have a point. If that's where most complaints are coming from, it's worth looking into." Henshaw's jaw tightened slightly, but he forced a smile. Sure. We'll review it later. But let's focus on the real agenda for now." The meeting continued, but Mia barely heard the rest of the discussion. She kept her face calm, but inside, she felt frustrated. She had spoken up because she genuinely wanted to help, not to impress anyone. Yet, instead of considering her input, Mr. Henshaw had embarrassed her in front of everyone. After the meeting, as people gathered their things, Rachel walked up to her. "Hey," she said quietly, "don't let him get to you." That was a solid point, and a lot of people noticed. Mia smiled faintly. "Thanks, Rachel. I appreciate it." As she rolled out of the conference room, she made a silent promise to herself. She wasn't going to let anyone push her down, not even Mr. Henshaw. She had worked too hard to be here, and she wasn't going to let one rude manager stand in her way. Mia returned to her desk after the meeting, trying to push away the frustration she felt. She had spoken up because she wanted to help, but Mr. Henshaw had treated her as if her opinion didn't matter. She wasn't expecting special treatment, but she also wasn't expecting to be dismissed so easily. She took a deep breath and reminded herself why she was here. She wanted to gain experience, prove her abilities, and learn as much as possible. One bad moment in a meeting wasn't going to stop her. Just as she started reviewing some documents, an email notification popped up on her screen. It was from Mr. Henshaw. Subject: Tasks for today. Mia, since you have free time to think about customer service, I assume you have extra time for work. Here's a list of things you need to complete by the end of the day. No delays. Maya frowned as she scrolled through the email. The list was long, way longer than what any intern should be handling alone. He had assigned her tasks that had nothing to do with her position, including organizing old storage files, delivering documents to different departments, and even setting up a presentation for another employee. She realized what this was. He wanted to keep her busy with unnecessary tasks so she wouldn't get involved in real work again. Still, she wasn't going to complain. Instead of letting his actions upset her, she focused on the tasks one by one. If he thought she would give up easily, he was wrong. Mia started with the filing work. The cabinets were located in the back of the office, filled with years of old reports. She spent nearly an hour organizing them, making sure everything was in order. It was tedious, but she stayed focused. After that, she moved on to delivering documents. She rolled through the hallways, dropping off papers at different departments. Most people greeted her politely, and a few even asked if she needed help, but she assured them she had it under control. By lunchtime, Mia was exhausted, but she wasn't done yet. She still had to prepare the presentation slides for an employee in the sales department. She took a quick break, then got back to work. As she was finishing the slides, she overheard voices from the hallway outside Mr. Henshaw's office. His door was slightly open, and she could hear him speaking to someone. "She's just an intern," he said. "She should know her place. I don't need some kid in a wheelchair telling me how to run things." Mia's fingers froze over the keyboard. For a moment, she felt anger rising in her chest, not because of the words themselves. She had dealt with unfair treatment before, but because of how casually he said them, as if she wasn't even worth basic respect. She could hear the other person responding, their voice quieter, but she didn't care to listen. Instead, she took a deep breath and reminded herself that she was here for a reason. If Mr. Henshaw thought he could break her confidence, he was wrong. She straightened her posture, finished the slides, and sent them to the sales department. Then she sat back and made a decision. She was going to document everything. Every task he assigned her that had nothing to do with her role. Every dismissive comment. Every unfair treatment. Not because she wanted revenge, but because she knew that people like Mr. Henshaw only got away with this behavior when no one spoke up. A week later, the entire office was buzzing with excitement. News had spread that Richard Caldwell, the CEO of the company, would be visiting the headquarters for an unannounced visit. Everyone seemed eager to impress, knowing that the CEO's presence could bring opportunities for those who made a positive impression. Mia sat at her desk, quietly observing the rush of activity around her. Employees were making sure their desks were tidy, running around delivering papers, and speaking in hushed tones about the upcoming visit. She was just as curious as anyone else, but she didn't let the excitement distract her from her work. Mr. Henshaw, however, was a different story. The moment he got the news, he straightened his tie and started walking around the office, making sure everything looked perfect. He spoke to everyone in a sharp, almost demanding tone, as if this was his moment to shine. Mia noticed his behavior and couldn't help but think about how different he acted now compared to when they first met. Before, he barely acknowledged her existence. Now he was practically hovering over everyone, trying to make sure nothing went wrong during the CEO's visit. Around lunchtime, Lisa, the HR assistant, came over to Mia's desk. "Hey, Mia," she said with a smile. "You know Richard Caldwell is here today, right?" Mia nodded. "I heard. Is he meeting with everyone?" "Not everyone," Lisa replied, lowering her voice. "But he's stopping by some departments, including customer service and marketing." She looked around before adding, "I heard he's meeting with a few interns too, just to get a feel for how things are going." Mia's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected that. The idea of speaking directly with the CEO made her nervous, but she quickly reminded herself that she had nothing to fear. She was here to learn, and if Richard Caldwell wanted to speak with her, she would be ready. Just as Mia finished her lunch, the office went completely still. The elevator doors opened, and Richard Caldwell stepped out, looking exactly how Mia had imagined, tall, confident, and commanding. He walked with purpose, his presence immediately grabbing everyone's attention. People scrambled to make sure their workstations were spotless, and the buzz of conversations grew quieter as he passed by. He exchanged pleasantries with a few of the managers, who seemed eager to impress him. Mia watched from her desk, still unsure whether he would even notice her. She had made the decision to keep her family connection a secret, so he wouldn't know she was his granddaughter. But she couldn't help feeling a little nervous. What if he thought she didn't belong here? As Richard walked through the office, he spotted Mia. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, he smiled warmly. "Well, well," he said, walking toward her desk. "Mia, it's good to see you. How's everything going so far?" Mia blinked in surprise. She hadn't expected him to recognize her. "Mr. Caldwell, it's great to see you too. Things are going well. I've been learning a lot." Richard nodded, his gaze softening. "I'm glad to hear that. How's your internship been so far? Any challenges?" Mia felt a little taken aback by his friendly demeanor. She had always heard that the CEO was a tough businessman, but he didn't seem like that at all. "There have been a few challenges, but I'm handling them," she replied, feeling more at ease. Richard smiled again. "That's what I like to hear. Keep pushing through. You've got potential." Just as they were talking, Mia noticed Mr. Henshaw walking in their direction. His eyes widened when he saw Richard speaking to Mia. He quickly straightened up and moved toward them, trying to put on his most professional face. "Mr. Caldwell, I didn't expect to see you here," Henshaw said in an overly eager tone. Richard gave him a nod, but his attention quickly returned to Mia. "I was just catching up with one of our interns here. Mia's been doing great work." Mia's heart raced, but she kept her smile steady. She could see Henshaw's jaw tighten slightly as he glanced between the two of them. He looked uncomfortable, almost as if he was caught off guard by the conversation. "I'm glad to hear that," Henshaw said, forcing a smile. "I'm sure Mia will continue to be a great asset to the team." Richard turned to Henshaw, his expression neutral. "We'll see. I like to make my own judgment. Keep up the good work, Mia," he added, turning back to her. With that, Richard excused himself and continued his tour around the office. Mia sat at her desk, trying to stay composed. She couldn't help but feel a small sense of pride. For the first time, she had caught the attention of the CEO, and for the right reasons. Meanwhile, Mr. Henshaw walked away, looking less confident than before. Mia couldn't help but feel a bit of satisfaction. She had just gotten a glimpse of the kind of respect she deserved, and it felt like the beginning of something bigger. The following days at the office were busy, but Mia felt a renewed sense of determination. After her brief conversation with Richard Caldwell, she felt more confident in her role. She knew she had a lot to prove, but that was part of the challenge she had come here for. Mr. Henshaw, on the other hand, seemed to be in a much more uncomfortable mood. Mia couldn't help but notice how much he avoided making eye contact with her ever since the CEO's visit. He hadn't spoken to her much, and when he did, it was always about trivial tasks or assignments that were far below her abilities. Mia had spent hours working on detailed reports, creating ideas to improve customer service, and organizing team data, but it seemed like Henshaw was doing everything he could to keep her out of any real decision-making. He even started assigning her tasks that weren't related to her department at all, like helping with the office's inventory. She was growing tired of his behavior, but knew it wasn't the right time to confront him. Instead, Mia decided to focus on what she could control, her work. She continued to give her best effort, knowing that hard work would eventually speak louder than any of Henshaw's attempts to undermine her. One afternoon, as Mia was finishing up some files, Rachel came over with a big smile. "You've got to check this out," she said, holding up a printout of the company's latest internal newsletter. "Look who's featured." Mia took the paper and read the headline. Intern of the Month, Mia Anderson. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected anything like this. The newsletter highlighted her achievements over the past month, mentioning her quick grasp of company processes, her contributions to improving customer service, and her proactive attitude in tackling difficult tasks. The piece even praised her for bringing fresh ideas into the office. Rachel smiled. "You're making waves, Mia. It's about time people started noticing." Mia couldn't believe it. She had barely been at the company for a month, and now she was getting recognition for her hard work. It felt amazing, but she was also aware that this attention might not sit well with everyone. As she looked around the office, she noticed that a few people were talking in hushed voices and glancing in her direction. While some seemed supportive, there were others who appeared uncomfortable. It didn't matter to Mia, though. She was focused on her journey and what she had come here to do. That evening, just as she was about to leave, Mr. Henshaw came up to her desk. He had been unusually distant the past few days, but today his tone was different, almost forcedly friendly. "Good work on the newsletter feature, Mia," he said, standing a little too close. "I guess people are starting to see your potential." Mia smiled politely, not letting his tone affect her. "Thank you, Mr. Henshaw. I'm just doing my best." He nodded, but there was something in his eyes that made Mia uneasy. It wasn't genuine praise. He was more focused on maintaining control, as if he wanted to remind her of her place. "I'll be expecting even better results soon," he added, his voice flat. "Just remember, this is a fast-paced environment. Don't get too comfortable." Mia held his gaze, not backing down. "I won't, Mr. Henshaw. I'm here to learn and grow." As he turned to leave, Mia let out a quiet breath. She knew there was more to come, but she wasn't about to let anything hold her back. The next day, Maya was summoned to a meeting with the senior leadership team, including Richard Caldwell. When she entered the room, she was surprised to see how casual the atmosphere was. Richard was sitting at the head of the table, and he gave her a warm smile when she walked in. "Mia, it's great to have you here," he said. "We've been reviewing some of the ideas you've been contributing to the company. Keep it up. We're impressed." Mia's heart soared. She hadn't expected this kind of attention from the top leaders. She hadn't done it for recognition, but it felt amazing to know her efforts were being noticed by those who mattered most. Richard continued, "We're discussing a few upcoming initiatives, and we'd love for you to be involved. I think you could offer some valuable input." Mia's mind raced. She had worked hard to get to this point, and now she had a real opportunity to prove herself. She looked around the room at the senior team, who were nodding in agreement. Henshaw, who was also in the meeting, seemed uncomfortable, almost as if he didn't want to acknowledge her. But Mia didn't care. This was her chance, and she wasn't about to waste it. "I'd be honored," she said with a confident smile. "I've been analyzing some ideas already, and I'm excited to contribute." Richard leaned forward slightly, clearly interested in her input. "That's exactly the kind of attitude we need here." The days after the meeting with the senior leadership team flew by. Mia was assigned more responsibilities, and with each new task, she proved her abilities. She wasn't just an intern anymore. She was a valuable part of the team. Everyone, even Mr. Henshaw, had to start acknowledging her work. At first, it felt strange to have her ideas taken seriously. It wasn't something she was used to, especially with how people had treated her when she first started. But now, as she sat in meetings, actively contributing to important discussions, it felt like all the hard work was finally paying off. Her days were filled with back-to-back meetings, brainstorming sessions, and projects that pushed her to grow even further. The pressure was intense, but Mia was thriving. She worked late most nights, determined to stay ahead and impress the senior team, especially Richard Caldwell. It wasn't just about proving herself to the company anymore. It was about showing everyone that she belonged here. One afternoon, as Mia was reviewing customer service feedback for an upcoming report, she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned around and saw Rachel standing there, holding a cup of coffee in each hand. "Thought you could use a break," Rachel said with a grin. "You've been working nonstop lately." Mia smiled and took the cup. "Thanks, Rachel. I needed this." Rachel sat down next to her, glancing at the screen. "You're really killing it, Mia. I've heard people talking about you, and they're impressed. Even Henshaw seems to have backed off a little." Mia chuckled, but there was a trace of concern in her voice. "Yeah, but I know he's still not happy about how things turned out after the CEO's visit. He doesn't like that people are taking me seriously now." Rachel nodded. "That's just his ego talking. Don't let it get to you. You're doing amazing work. You've earned your place here." Mia took a deep breath, appreciating Rachel's words. She was right. But she couldn't help but feel the tension whenever Henshaw was around. He had started assigning her more tasks, but they were never challenging. Just busywork to keep her occupied. Still, Mia didn't let it discourage her. She stayed focused, determined to do whatever it took to keep proving herself. She wasn't going to be anyone's pawn. The following week, Maya was invited to another meeting with the senior leadership team. This time, they were discussing a new initiative to improve the company's outreach and communication with clients. Mia was thrilled to be included, especially since the meeting was about something she felt passionate about. As they went around the room, each person shared their thoughts on how the initiative could be improved. When it was her turn, Maya stood up and confidently presented her idea for a customer feedback platform that would allow clients to share their experiences in real time. By implementing a more immediate feedback system, Mia explained, we can address concerns while they're still fresh. It will help build stronger relationships with our clients and ensure that we're always improving. There was a brief silence as everyone absorbed her suggestion. Richard Caldwell was the first to speak. That's an excellent idea, Mia. It's fresh and practical. I like it. Other senior leaders nodded in agreement. I agree, said one of the marketing executives. We could tie that into our social media platforms as well. It would give us more visibility and make us look more responsive. Mia's heart raced as she realized how much her idea was being valued. She had done it again, offered something that could genuinely benefit the company. As the meeting wrapped up, Richard turned to her with a smile. I think we're going to move forward with this idea. Let's get you involved in the planning stages. Your input is exactly what we need to push this forward. Mia couldn't believe it. She had come so far from the unsure intern who had been overlooked in her first weeks. Now she was an active participant in shaping the company's future. As everyone began to leave, Mr. Henshaw approached Mia, his face unreadable. Nice work, Mia, he said, though his tone seemed forced. Keep it up. Mia smiled politely but didn't engage further. She knew Henshaw wasn't exactly happy with her progress, but she didn't need his approval. She had earned her place in this company, and it wasn't going anywhere. Later that evening, as Mia sat at her desk, she couldn't help but reflect on how much she had grown. She had faced so many challenges, being underestimated, dealing with unnecessary tasks, and even feeling like an outsider. But each challenge had only made her stronger. She knew her journey wasn't over. There would be more obstacles, more difficult people, and more tests. But Mia had proven one thing to herself. She was capable of anything. And as the days passed, she made sure to keep proving it. As the weeks passed, Maya felt more confident than ever. Her ideas were being taken seriously, her contributions were valued, and she had proven to everyone that she had a lot to offer. She no longer felt like the quiet intern sitting in the back of the room, waiting for a chance to speak. She was now someone who was actively shaping the direction of the company. One morning, as Mia arrived at the office, she noticed a large envelope on her desk. It was from the Human Resources Department. She opened it with curiosity, her heart racing a little as she unfolded the letter inside. It was an official offer to join the company as a full-time employee once her internship was over. Mia blinked, her mind racing. She had known that her hard work was being noticed, but receiving an official offer felt like a dream. It was a huge step forward, one she hadn't expected to come so soon. She had been so focused on doing her best every day that she hadn't even considered the possibility of a full-time position this quickly. With a smile, Maya took a moment to let the news sink in. She had earned it. She had worked through the doubts, the challenges, and the unfair treatment. But in the end, her dedication and passion had paid off. Later that morning, Richard Caldwell came by her desk. Mia, he said with a warm smile, I've been hearing nothing but great things about your work lately. I just wanted to take a moment to personally thank you for everything you've done for the company. Mia stood up, surprised by his direct attention. Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. I really appreciate it. I've been learning a lot here. Richard nodded. It shows. In fact, I'd like to discuss something with you. We're looking for someone to take on a leadership role in the customer service department. Someone with fresh ideas and a forward-thinking approach. And I think you'd be perfect for it. Mia's jaw nearly dropped. A leadership role. It was a big jump from where she had started, but she wasn't about to shy away from an opportunity like this. I'm honored, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. I'd love to discuss the role further. Richard smiled. I'll arrange a meeting with HR and the department heads to go over the details. You've earned this, Mia. You've earned all of it. As the day went on, Maya's excitement grew. She couldn't believe how far she had come. It felt like just yesterday when she was struggling to fit in, wondering if she even belonged at the company. Now she was being offered leadership opportunities. It was a reminder that hard work and perseverance always paid off, no matter how long it took. But as much as the recognition felt good, Mia was more focused on the future. She had proven herself, but she knew that there was always more to learn, more to achieve, and more ways to grow. That afternoon, she met with the HR department and discussed the details of the leadership position. It would involve overseeing a team, improving customer service processes, and working closely with other departments to ensure the company was always moving forward. The role was challenging, but it was also exactly what she had been striving for. Mia accepted the offer with confidence. She wasn't going to back down now. She had come too far, and this new chapter was just the beginning. She would continue pushing herself, continue growing, and continue proving that she belonged in the company. Later that day, Mia ran into Mr. Henshaw in the hallway. He looked at her, his expression hard to read. For a moment, she thought he might say something dismissive, but instead, he simply nodded. "Congratulations, Mia," he said, his voice neutral. "You've worked hard for this." Mia smiled, her response calm but firm. "Thank you, Mr. Henshaw. I appreciate it." As she walked away, she couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. She had earned the respect of those around her, including the people who had once tried to hold her back. The following weeks were filled with excitement and challenge. Mia settled into her new role, working with her team to implement changes and improve the company's customer service approach. She took everything she had learned during her internship and applied it to her work, always looking for ways to make things better. And while the road wasn't always easy, Mia knew that she was on the right path. She had come from an uncertain beginning, faced plenty of obstacles, and had been underestimated more times than she cared to count. But now, she was a leader in her own right. Looking back on her journey, Mia couldn't help but feel proud of how far she had come. She knew that her story wasn't just about a job or a position. It was about proving that no one could define her based on her appearance, her background, or her circumstances. She was more than just an intern. She was someone who had fought for her place and had earned the respect she deserved. And the best part, her journey had only just begun.